and then you indicated that there had been quite an improvement after that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And you indicate on page 13, towards the bottom at paragraph 3.15, that a final report was prepared. I assume that's in relation to the vetting. Is that correct?
That is correct, Advocate Mayor.
And it was presented to Minister Mahlobo in January 2017. Is that right?
That's right.
Now, that was attached to your affidavit, so I'd like to just take you to that presentation. And it commences at page 50.
Yes.
Is this a presentation you prepared?
Yes, this is the presentation I prepared.
And it says on the first page, page 50 there, that it was presented by project leader, and I take that to be a reference to yourself. Is that correct?
Yes.
On the 17th of January 2017. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you present this presentation?
It was forwarded to the office of our ministry by myself. Yes.
So did you ever actually present it at any meeting at SAA or otherwise?
At
SAA?
No.
So what was this prepared for?
The board.
The board.
The board.
And despite it saying presented by, you didn't actually present it. Is that correct?
No, I didn't actually present.
Do you know whether it was presented?
No, I don't know.
Okay. But this was your final...
I'm sorry. Would it be correct to say presented by was meant to be prepared by?
Yes.
Okay.
That's helpful. Thank you, Chair. So it was prepared by you, and this is at the conclusion of the vetting exercise. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So I'd like to just take you to a few items within this. Ms. Dlamini, we've already traversed the respect in which your project plan had identified the objective of the vetting exercise. I don't suggest that we go over that again.
Okay.
You've had a lot of questions, but I do just want to note for the purposes of the record that the same objective is recorded when you came to finalize this report on the vetting exercise, and you'll find that at page 53. Do you see there the second paragraph reads in the same terms that your project plan read? Sorry, you might, page 53, 53. Do you have that?
Yes, I have that.
So the second paragraph there read, I think in exactly the same words, the objective is to ensure that all classified and sensitive documents within, I think it's again supposed to be SAA, are accessed by personnel with valid security clearances. Do you see that?
I see that.
So both at the inception and at the conclusion of the vetting process, you described its objective in these terms. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then I'd like to go to page 60.
I'm with you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So at the top of that page, you talk about the project success, and you record there the project success contributes immensely to the agency meeting its objectives. In essence, 70% of executive management and support staff have been vetted. Currently, there are 85 cases of which clearance have been concluded. The cases that are not concluded are still under further investigations. There were no strikes or serious disturbances reported since the project started. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that.
Are strikes and serious disturbances things that sometimes do occur when vetting operations are carried out?
It has never occurred advocate of mayor, but I was quite cautious because with the SAA, anything could have happened. There are unions involved. There might have been executives that would approach the unions to state whatever reasons. So that is why I had to indicate it there.
Were you alerted to the fact that there was dissatisfaction or concern amongst the executives that might have led them to raise these issues with the unions?
No.
No. But you still thought it necessary to record that?
Of course, because in terms of the work that we were doing there, it would be important not to put the entity under any undue stress. So it comes from that thinking, Chairperson.
And in the penultimate bullet on that page.
Well, before you move away from that issue, Ms. Hofmeyr, I don't understand, Ms. Dlamini, what the relevance is of that sentence in the context of your report. There were no strikes or serious disturbances reported. You say, since the project started, so you are looking at during the life of the project.
Yes.
You are now at the end, you are preparing your report.
Yes.
Please help me understand why strikes and disturbances would be relevant to put in this kind of report.
We vetted the members of parliament in 2015, and we experienced the union who cited that they were not happy with certain issues. So that did have an impact in terms of delaying the work. So it was important for me to state that in this instance.
You see, if you had said something along the lines that you are not aware of anybody who was unhappy about the project, that I would understand. Your reference to what happened in Parliament, I would understand it. But in Parliament, you are not saying there were strikes and disturbances, or at least you are not saying there were strikes. It seems that some unhappiness was there.
Yes.
But strikes?
Anything possible might have happened.
Okay.
That's the thinking that I had.
Yeah.
Because if employees, any other person employed in a state organ who is not happy, the first contact would be the unions. And what happens after that, the complaints, the strikes, that sort of thing.
Well, I don't know about strikes. I think let's move on.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Dlamini, the second last bullet on that page,
Yes.
you record that SAA reported an improvement on their revenue, in brackets about 2 billion turnover, as a result of the vetting project. Where did you obtain that information from?
As I indicated before, I had a continuous engagement with the acting CEO at the time, and I did ask him to say, since the inception of the project, what has been the developments? Are there any improvements or any other issue that we must take note of? So it comes from that.
Did you make that request to him verbally?
Yes.
And did he communicate this information to you verbally?
Yes.
And he specifically said that there was a 2 billion rand turnover that SAA had achieved as a result of this vetting project?
He didn't say as a result, but he said they've seen some shift, a positive shift in terms of the revenue.
So were you the one who then, when you described it here, related it to the vetting project?
Yes, yes, yes.
Mr. Blini, on what possible basis could a movement in the turnover of SAA be causally linked back to the vetting project?
I must say that I didn't have access to the financials at that time, but I know that it's individuals that manipulates the system. It's individuals that are engaged in mismanagement of funds. So any positive shift during that period, I would say...
No, Ms. Lamine, please. No, please, 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 please. Are you going to persist in saying that because of this vetting process, suddenly SAA got a 2 billion rand turnover?
Chairperson, can I explain, please? Can I explain?
But is that what you are going to say?
No.
That as a result of this
No,
project?
No, I'm just saying there was a positive shift. Maybe it should have been stated that way.
What positive shift?
To say...
What happened as a result of this project?
There was some revenue generation.
Revenue generation?
Yes.
That's your thinking?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Sofme.
Over the page, you list some of the other impacts of the project. The first of those at page 61 is the resignation of 7 executive managers. Do you see that?
Page?
61.
Yes, yes, yes.
So 7 executive managers resigned. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
And then on the third bullet on that page, you record the great success of the SAA vetting project has resulted in the project being extended to other entities within SAA. Do you see that?
Yes.
Which were those other entities?
We never got to vet any other executives within the entity, but my thinking was that, remember, there was an indication from the former chairperson that we must vet the pilots. So my thinking was, in terms of the work that we did there, it was of high standard to an extent that there was a need for us to also vet the other group.
Well, let's unpack that a bit. You say the great success of the SAA vetting project. What was a great success about it?
The fact that we were able to advise in terms of the risks.
What were you able to advise?
In terms of the risks.
What risks? What advice were you able to give?
I think it's tabled on this report in terms of our findings and recommendations.
Okay, take me to those, if you will.
It's on page... Just give me a second. Just give me a second.
Sure.
Because that's where there are findings and recommendations. That's what I'm trying to get to.
findings of the project.
Yes.
Do you know where it is, Ms. Hoffman?
I must say I don't. So
Yes.
that is actually why
Yeah.
I've asked for Ms. Lamini's assistance.
Is there an index?
No.
Yeah, I think maybe there's a.
There's a
There's a
sort of
slide,
contents
yes,
page, but it doesn't give a reference point.
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's a.
Well,
Missing slide.
if the content page doesn't have findings as an item, I don't think you will find findings, any heading saying findings in the report, because findings would have been quite important, and they
Yeah.
would have been included in the content, I would imagine.
No, I think I must acknowledge the mistake from my part, because they should have been there, yes, Chairperson, because
Yes.
that's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's the mistake from the attachments that was supposed to be in, yes.
So just help me again. What then was the great success of the project?
There's a slide where we advise the client in terms of the risks identified.
Oh, sorry. No, that I do know where that is. That's at page 62.
Is it page 62?
Sorry, I had also thought we were looking for findings, but this is this the page where there are risks identified?
No. it's
But
not
the heading
page.
says risks identified.
No, during the course of the project.
Yes.
Yes, these were the risks.
Oh.
But the final.
Oh, no, I
Yes.
haven't seen that.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
not
there
yet.
was supposed to be in this presentation some recordal of the risks that you'd identified. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Okay, tell us now, what were those risks?
Let me think now. There were indications of executives who had, let me think. Can I provide those, please? Can I get a chance to provide those? I'm thinking out of my head, please.
Yes, it would have been helpful for them to be provided today, but
Yeah.
let's just get the evidence. As at today, you can't recall what the great success was
Yeah,
of the SAA vetting exercise.
I want to be more accurate in terms of what I'd
Yes.
tabled down.
Yes,
Rather
yes,
than talking
yes,
from my head, yes.
yes.
I think it's better that way.
Okay. And you say at that same bullet, the great success of the SAA vetting project has resulted to the project being extended to other entities within SAA. That, when I read it, suggests to me it's something that has happened. It has resulted in that extension. Do you understand that in the same way as me?
No, I
No.
understand it in a sense that I received an indication to say we're going to request that you vet the other, for instance, the pilots. Yes, so it comes from that.
I see. So it was
Yes.
anticipating a request that would then be acted upon. Is that
Yes,
right?
yes,
And you thought that that would be a positive result out of this process. Is that
Very
correct?
much, very
right.
much, yes.
Why would that be? Why would you want to vet pilots?
Not specifically pilots, but
That was the request, wasn't it?
yes, that was the request. But I'm saying my thinking is because the team was above board in terms of our processes, in terms of the work that we're supposed to do there, judging by the fact that there were no issues that were raised with the organization or myself during the period that we were there. And then if now we get an indication to say, can we extend to vet this? So from my part, it would say, job well done. That was my thing.
Who was that request coming from to vet the pilots?
It came from the former chairperson of SAA.
Ms. Mieni.
Yes.
Did you intend at any point to determine whether you could lawfully vet the pilots, or would her request have been enough?
No, we never got to deliberate on that particular issue because my focus was mainly on the work at hand. Yes.
And then if we go to page 65,
Going back to page 61, the great success of the SAA vetting project has resulted to the project being extended to other entities within SAA. Are you saying that you are not able to tell us what the great success was of the project? You want to go and have a look at it at some document?
I'm saying, Chairperson, in terms of the findings and recommendation that were supposed to be attached to this report, they are not here today.
Yeah, no, leave out the findings and
Yes.
recommendations. Here you say the great success of the SAA vetting project has resulted, blah, 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 blah. So the question that Ms. Hofmeyer asked earlier on was, what is that success that you are talking about here? And I understood you to say you want to have a look at some document. So I'm wondering whether you were the leader of this project. You can't tell us this was the great success of the project.
I'm saying, as I know them, but it would be better to read from the document that
Okay,
contains
tell me the
that.
great success as you know it, even if it's not going to be exactly as documented somewhere. This was a big project and an
Yes.
important project, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you can't not remember what its great success was if it had a great success.
For example, a chairperson would advise SAA to revisit their recruitment strategy, because you'll find that the executives that are already in the system, there was no clause in the contract to say they'll have to undergo vetting. Secondly, in terms of the measures such as taking an oath, a declaration of secrecy, such as, let me think, those were not undertaken when the people enter the system.
Okay, so that's the
Yes.
great success.
That's the great success.
Okay.
It means, by that I mean, we've been able to influence policy.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Could you not have given those two recommendations without conducting the vetting?
No.
Well, let's take each of them. I want to suggest to you that all you needed to do was go to SAA, have a meeting with the board and management, ask them whether in the terms of the contracts of employment of the existing executives, they had a clause that required them to be subjected to vetting. And if the answer in that meeting was no, they aren't, then you could have given that advice on that day, correct?
I believe, Advocate Hofmeyer, you're taking an approach that would be sort of ad hoc. In this case, there was a project in place, and we had to do an investigative, systematic approach to the individuals that are already at a strategic level. So in that sense, you're saying there was no need
Yes.
to vet the officials. I would have walked in there, check 1, 2, 3, and make findings, which I don't think.
No, what I'm probing, Ms. Dlamini,
Yes.
is whether you have to subject 118 managers and support staff at SAA to invasive security vetting procedures. If you tell us that the two great successes of this project were things you could have done without vetting a single person, and let me just be clear about it. The first one you gave us was that you were able to advise SAA about revisiting their recruitment,
Yes.
so that they could include in their contracts
Yes.
with employees that they must subject themselves to vetting.
Yes.
I want to put it to you, you could have given that advice after one engagement with management and the board of SAA, established that it's not in the contracts, and advised them to put it in. What is your response to that?
I don't agree with you, because now we're talking about the project that had to be undertaken.
No, Ms. Dlamini. What Ms. Hofmeyer has put to you is she is questioning the need for this project of vetting to have happened, and particularly maybe at the size at which it happened. So she's drawing your attention to saying, here is another way in which you could have achieved what you call a great success without this vetting project that subjected people to a very invasive process. That's what she's saying. She's questioning the need for the vetting project to have been embarked upon.
Let me just
And she's
indicate-
inviting you to say whether you agree with her that you didn't need to do the vetting exercise in order to establish whether the contracts of employment of the executives had a clause saying they should undertake that. You obviously didn't need the vetting process to establish what is in the contract.
Chairperson, that is why I said it would have been better to refer to the findings and recommendations here.
No,
And
I
that-
refer to that. We're not talking about that.
Yes.
Cast your mind back to before the project started. If one of the things you wanted to check is whether the executive's contracts of employment had a certain clause, you didn't need the vetting process for that, to establish that. You needed to check with management or say, let me see their contracts.
Yes,
Do you
Chairperson.
agree?
Yes, I agree.
And then you would, if you were given the contracts, you would know whether they've got the
That-
clauses that you are looking for.
Yes, Chairperson, you
Okay.
are correct, but that's not the only focus or the outcome. that
No,
came
that's
out.
fine. She's
Yes.
taking the 3 points which you gave as great success one by one. That's what she's doing.
And let me also highlight that in terms of the strategic goals of vetting, it is to ensure that corruption is reduced in a state-owned entity.
Yes, Ms. Hofmeyr.
Yes.
Thank you. We will actually come to the point about corruption, but you
Yes.
gave a second great success, and that was the recommendations you made regarding the requirement that there be a declaration of secrecy undertaken by executives. Did I have that correct?
Where are you? Yes.
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 So again, I want to suggest to you that that was a recommendation that could have been made without the need to conduct any part of the vetting exercise.
I think, Advocate Hofmeyr, what is happening now? You are saying, you are going through what I'm saying, and you're trying to say there was no need for vetting.
That's precisely what I'm
Yes,
doing.
she has told you that's what she's challenging.
And I don't agree with that.
Yes, but she's giving you a chance to say why you don't agree.
I was explaining that in terms of the goal, we had to make sure that corruption is reduced there. In order for us to reach that goal, we would highlight any other issue. It can be small or big. It can be small or big, but the main goal is to ensure that corruption is reduced there.
Just specifically on...
So I guess, Ms. Lamini, going back to the discussion we had earlier on, that all the millions of state employees that we have in South Africa are supposed to be security vetted. If they have all been vetted, and despite that we have the high levels of corruption that we are having, then this security vetting doesn't help reduce the corruption.
We have not vetted all of them, Chairperson. We have not vetted all of them, Chairperson.
Why not?
The magnitude of the work is too much.
Ms. Hofmeyr.
Ms. Damini, you do refer to corruption combating at page 65 of your report. Could you
Yes.
go there?
Yes.
In the penultimate bullet, on page 65.
Yes.
You recalled SAA has expressed satisfaction regarding the significant role the agency continues to play in combating corruption. Do you see that?
Yes.
How did your vetting operation assist in combating corruption at SAA?
Personal security vetting is the first point of ensuring that the people, the executives that are there, are men and women of integrity.
Ms. Dlamini, I'm going to come back to whether that's the first step, but I want to, for the present set of questions, accept what you've said. That the first step towards combating corruption is to do security vetting and ensure that the people who are employed in these state-owned companies are persons of integrity. Have I captured that correctly?
You've captured that correctly.
Okay. When people who were vetted didn't get security clearance, why were they allowed to retain their jobs?
Because legally, we are not covered in terms of that.
What does that mean?
It means it is unclear as to say, do you dismiss the person? Do you still keep the person in the entity?
But Ms. Dlamini, that means your security vetting exercise can have no impact on curbing corruption. Let me explain to you why. If security vetting is a necessary step towards securing against corruption in an entity, then it has to be effective. You have to be able to do your security vetting, determine that somebody shouldn't be given clearance, and then be able to get rid of them. If your evidence today is you can't take that step, then the entire exercise has no purpose.
I don't think that is correct, Advocate of Mayor, because as I've indicated before, any risk that can be reduced at that particular time. And in terms of advising on the measures that needs to be addressed by that particular institution, it does make a difference.
So,
yes, you cannot fire a person on the spot to say they must leave that particular organization, but we would have advised the entity to say 1, 2, 3 needs to be taken cautious of.
would your advice have included whether they should dismiss people who didn't receive security clearance?
At this point, because the law does not cover that part, we have not indicated that there should be a dismissal.
So the short answer is you would not advise an entity to dismiss people who fail to get a security clearance.
Especially, Chairperson, because there are labor relations issues relating to that.
And somebody thinks that it would not be a good ground to dismiss somebody who is not able to get security clearance in an entity that emphasizes on fighting corruption.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you did security vetting in an entity and you did subjected 100 people to the security vetting and 50 of them did not get clearance, you would still not be able to advise the entity to get
Dismiss
rid of
them.
the 50.
No, we wouldn't say they must,
Yeah.
dismiss
So
them.
they would stay with the problem that half of its staff have failed to get security clearance.
For instance, we would advise on programs that needs to be undertaken to deal with the issue.
But did I misunderstand your evidence when I thought it was to the effect that you need to have your staff security cleared
Yes.
in order to reduce corruption or potential for corruption? Did I understand your evidence correctly?
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes, but you agree that in the example I'm giving, then the entity would remain with quite a serious risk as far as state security agency is concerned.
It would mean, for instance, you would have to give access to that particular individual to information that is not of high sensitivity.
Ms. Hoffman?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Dlamini, I promised earlier in the evidence I would take you to the law because I suggested that the understanding that you describe of when security vetting can take place in state-owned enterprises is not correct. I want to be clear about why I'm doing this. I'm not suggesting that you're a lawyer. What is relevant for this proceeding is what your understanding of the law is and what the understanding of your colleagues are who conduct vetting exercises. You've made it clear in your evidence today that your understanding, and I have your evidence to be it's an understanding shared in the vetting department of the State Security Agency, is that you can vet all employees of state-owned companies. Is that correct?
Employed, yes. According to Section 2A.
Not you can, Ms. Hoffman. You must.
Apologies. It's a must.
Yes.
And you've also confirmed that you don't need to check before you do that whether they have access to classified information or not. Correct?
I'm moving in terms of Section 2A.
Yes. No, but the answer I have it is
She's
yes.
asking whether
Yes.
she understood your evidence earlier correctly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to Section 2A, if we may. It's in the legislation bundle at page 365.
Which one?
The legislation bundle, yes, it's the big one in front of you, and it's page 365.
Yes.
So I just would like to read for the record and for your benefit what subsection 1 of section 2 capital A says. It says the relevant members of the national intelligence structures may conduct a vetting investigation in the prescribed manner to determine the security competence of a person if such person is employed by or is an applicant to an organ of state. Do you see that?
Yes.
And as I understand it, it's that section on which you rely for the evidence today that it's your understanding that you must vet everyone who's employed at an organ of state. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Domini, I would agree with that understanding.
Well, Ms. Hoffman, I don't know whether I'm hearing things that you're not saying, but I think it's the second time I hear you as if you're saying Miss Mien.
Oh my goodness. It's entirely possible.
Did anybody hear something like
Chair,
that?
It happens
No.
at around 3 o'clock
Okay.
in the afternoon.
No,
It's
a lot of
routine.
people say you didn't say that. So maybe it's just me.
It might.
Ms. Dlamini, you didn't hear anything like that. So it
That I
must be
called
me.
you Ms. Mieni.
I think.
Oh goodness, maybe I did. You see, this side of the room are my supporters, I fear. I don't think they're necessarily
Well, I
on
can
that
tell
side.
you this side too, you had supporters. Okay, all right. Maybe I just...
No, and can
Yeah.
I just say for the transcript's purposes, if
Yeah.
I did make that error, please, it's
Yeah.
Ms. Dlamini who is giving evidence today
No, it's just that the past 2 days
Yes.
we had a lot
about
Miss Mieni and Mr.
and Mr. Mieni,
Yeah.
and there was that confusion. Ms. Dlamini, we were looking at section 2, capital A.
Yes.
And you were explaining that that's where your understanding is derived from. And I was about to say, if that section read as follows and said, the relevant members of the national intelligence structures may conduct a vetting investigation, and then it left out the words that follow and continued, if such a person is employed by or an applicant to an organ of state, then I could see it having the meaning that you attribute to it. Do you see that?
Thank you very much for that.
Yes. But the problem, Ms. Dlamini, is that those words do appear there. The words "in the prescribed manner to determine the security competence of a person" is there. And what that means is we have to go in the Act to the definition of security competence to know when it is that vetting investigations can be conducted by members of the national intelligence structures. And you'll find the definition of security competence at page 363.
363. Yes, I'm with you.
Thank you. So you'll see a definition of security competence there, just below halfway down the page. The definition reads as follows. Security competence means a person's ability to act in such a manner that he or she does not cause classified information or material to fall into unauthorized hands, thereby harming or endangering the security or interests of the state. And then it goes on to describe how you measure that. You measure it against three things: the person's susceptibility to extortion or blackmail, the person's amenability to bribes and susceptibility to being compromised due to his or her behavior, and the person's loyalty to the state and the relevant institution. Ms. Dlamini, the important part of that definition is that it's concerned with a person's ability to cause classified information or material to fall into unauthorized hands. Do you agree that that's an important part of that definition?
Yes, I agree that security competency is mainly to ensure that information does not land into unauthorized hands.
Yes, so when you read section 2, capital A with that definition, I want to tell you the meaning I give it, and then I'd like you to tell me whether you have a different understanding of it. See, 2A is an empowering provision. It says members of the national intelligence structures may conduct an vetting investigation in the prescribed manner to determine the security competence of a person. And in order to know what may lawfully be included in a security vetting operation, you have to know what security competence is. And security competence is a person's ability to divulge confidential information. Do you accept that that's the meaning of security competence?
Yes.
So I want to put it to you, and you can tell me if your understanding is different, that what's required for lawful vetting investigations to be conducted at organs of state is that you have to determine first whether there's a person who has an ability to cause confidential information or material to fall into unauthorized hands. And once you've identified that there are persons who have that ability, then you can conduct vetting investigations.
No, Advocate of Mayor, I'm not of the same thinking as you.
But you accept your understanding requires certain words in section 2, capital A, to be deleted.
I would want to stick to section 2.
Well, that might require her to be a lawyer.
Yes.
Good. Because, yes. On a pure understanding of the language, I think we accepted that those words could be removed in order for your meaning to apply. Is that correct?
Let me just stick to my meaning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's safe for me to say that.
Okay, let me ask you this question. If you accept that the purpose of conducting a vetting investigation in terms of section 2, capital A, is to determine the security competence of a person.
Yes,
If you
Chairperson.
accept that that's the purpose,
I'm with you, yes.
and you accept that this security competence of a person relates to the ability of that person to cause confidential information to land on unauthorized hands. If you accept that, isn't the position, therefore, this, that there are a lot of people that can be excluded from the need for a vetting investigation because by virtue of the type of job they do, they are far away from being able to access confidential information.
Yes.
Because if they can't access it, they can't cause it to land on unauthorized hands. Do you accept that?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Chair, I'm indebted.
Yes.
Ms. Dlamini, there's one point, and I made the error, and I got a furious note from my colleagues when I made it. When we look at the definition of security competence, I don't want us to not use the language that is recorded there. It does not actually say access to confidential information. It talks about access to classified information, which has a very particular meaning in a security setting. Yes. So what I would like to emphasize is that on the description that the chair has just given you, it's not simply, the relevant question is not simply whether a person has access to confidential information,
yes,
because there might be reams of confidential information. It's actually classified information. Do you accept that? That's what security competence is concerned with?
Yes.
Right. And then if I tell you that no manager at SAA has ever accessed classified information, would you have any basis on which to dispute that?
I'm sure you would provide me with the information that informs what you say.
Indeed. But you never checked whether they did have access to classified information, did you not?
No.
Because Ms. Dolitsky in her affidavit makes it clear. She's been at SAA at the time of deposing to her affidavit for 8 years. So that means she started in 2012. And in those 8 years, she's the head of, let me just get this right because I got this wrong the other day when I referred to someone as the head. But she is, at page 68, the head of Department for Financial Accounting at South African Airways. In her affidavit, she says the following about classified information. You don't necessarily have to go there. You just asked me to give you the reference for where I make this claim. It's at page 72 in Exhibit DD 24. Feel free to go there if you wish, but I will read it in. Ms. Olitsky says, I did not think it was a requirement for a finance manager in an airline to have such clearance anyway. In the years I had worked at SAA, I had never seen a document that could be deemed classified as secret or top secret. The Commission's investigators have indicated to me that classified information would usually be identified by way of a classified, secret, or top secret stamp or marking. And she confirms that that is not something she ever came across in her 8 years. If that were so, and given what you've accepted about the purpose and the structure of this act, would you accept that it was not lawful for the State Security Agency to conduct this vetting without establishing whether the people it was vetting had access to class? No, I mustn't do lawful. do you accept? Oh, let me ask it differently.
Maybe another way of asking it would be this, without requiring you to have legal knowledge.
Yes.
If we accept, and I understand you to accept, that the purpose of security vetting is to determine the security competence, would you not agree that, therefore, security vetting, where the person or persons who are being vetted don't have access to classified information, doesn't serve the purpose that security vetting is supposed to achieve?
With all due respect, Chair, I don't agree.
Yes, why do you not agree?
on a note that as per the section 2A,
Yeah.
if you are employed, you have to be vetted.
No. You must listen to my question carefully.
Yes.
Let's go back and you must tell me if I misunderstood you.
Yes.
Earlier on, I thought you agreed with me that if you look at section 2, capital letter A,
Yes.
the purpose of conducting
A
a
vetting.
vetting investigation is to determine the security competence of a person. I understood you correctly. You agree with that part?
Yes.
Yes,
Fully.
okay.
Fully.
Then Ms. Hofmeyer took you to the definition of security competence.
Competence.
You remember?
Yes.
And I think we are all agreed that what the Act says it is that it refers to the ability of a person or access to classified information by a person and the ability to allow classified information to land on unauthorized hands. Are we agreed or we're not agreed? Let's go to it. What was the section, Ms. Hoffman?
Security competence is
Yeah.
at page 363.
Okay, let's go to 363. I just want to, if you say you don't agree, I want to make sure I understand why you don't agree. Okay?
Yes.
Security competence means a person's ability to act in such a manner that he or she does not cause classified information or material to fall into unauthorized hands, thereby harming or endangering the security or interests of the state. Okay, it's the ability of a person to act in a manner that he or she does not cause classified information or material to fall into unauthorized hands. So that person, as I read this, must be somebody who has access to classified information or who can have access to classified information by virtue of the duties or responsibilities or work that he or she is doing. Are we agreed on that or are we not?
We agree on that, Chairperson, but I want to push you further.
Well,
To say-
let me first
Yes.
put this.
Yes.
So we agree on that. Now,
Yes.
as I understand the position, and you should know better, classified information is not information you are going to get all over. Classified information is stored and kept somewhere. Am I right?
Not all the time.
Not all the time.
Not all the time, yes.
But when it is not where it is supposed to be, is it not because somebody has done something, has allowed it to land in unauthorized hands?
It could be.
But most of the time, would it not, in an organization, isn't the position that only very few people would have access to classified information?
I think then the debate will go on to say, Chairperson, if you say it's information that must be stored somewhere, because that's a sense of
I'm simply saying, and I don't know, I'm saying you might know better. I'm under the impression that when information is classified,
Yes,
when a document is classified, where it is kept is something quite important. You don't want it to lie around. That's my understanding. And only a few people in an organization would have access to classified information. I may be wrong, but that's the picture that I have. Because you want only a few people to know about that information, authorized people, isn't it?
I think, Chairperson, it means one would have to have a discussion or deliberate to say, is this classified, is this not? Because that on its own, if one would say this document is classified, the question is, what informs you to say it's classified?
Well, I thought that to have a document classified means somebody makes a decision
To make it
that is
classified.
classified.
Yes.
It doesn't, generally speaking, become classified on its own.
Yes.
Somebody needs to know what it contains and should
classify.
take a view that this is something that should be classified. So if that is correct, I would imagine that in any organization, there must be very few people who have access to classified information, because that's information you don't want everyone to know.
But then, Chairperson, in order to ensure that, one might argue to say, we lock it away. But
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes. But what happens if you're working on a classified information, somebody walks in?
Yeah, but you are there,
Yes.
so you know this is classified, and you don't want the person to see it.
Yes, but it will depend on the behavior.
And
of
you
the
are not
person.
going to leave classified information unattended. You're not going, if there are people who can come in.
But does it happen like that? That's another question to say, do people do that?
Well, I would think that those people who are responsible for classified information take steps and measures to make sure only people who have the relevant clearance or who are authorized can see the information or the documents. Not anybody can see it. But are you saying you are not sure whether it is like that?
I'm saying, Chairperson, if I were to state to you that it is not always the case.
But is it supposed to be
Yes.
the case?
Yes, it's supposed
Yeah, you
to
see,
be
that's
the case.
important,
Yes.
because if that is how it's supposed to be, but maybe there are breaches of security, that's now another issue, because that might be because of other things. But if you accept that the information, once classified, is supposed to be kept somewhere and only a few people have access to it in an organization that has got more than 1,000 employees, I wouldn't see why you need to vet 500 employees who have no chance of having access to this information. You understand what I mean?
Yes, Chairperson.
But those who may be close because of their positions, then I would understand.
Yeah, but it's not always the case that the people that works with that classified information safeguard it and make sure that it is at where it's supposed to be.
Okay, Ms.
Yes.
Hofmeyer.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Ms.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hofmeyer. I needed to take a break at 3.
Of course.
I know I would have liked us to finish with Ms. Lamini before I take the break, but I think I must take it because we are
Certainly.
1:15.
Certainly.
Let's take a 10 minutes break. I just have some urgent document that I must sign.
Of course.
We are going to take a 10 minutes break. We are
Thank you, Chair.
All rise.
let's continue.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just before we continue, I have been asked to get some indication of the planning for the remainder of the afternoon, just because it does have an impact on arrangements that are being made for the second witness.
I don't think we can go beyond 5. But we can go beyond 4, maybe to 4:30, maybe up to 4:45, or even 5 o'clock. How is the situation for tomorrow looking?
Tomorrow we have a new scheduled witness to commence, but I've been discussing the situation with Mr. Mbikiwa, who will be presenting the evidence of the second witness today. Our sense is that even if we do go to 4:30 or 5, we won't quite complete his evidence. So we would need the second witness of today to continue tomorrow. And then there will be a bit of a knock-on effect for tomorrow's witness and possibly the witness on Friday. But we may be able to work that in. Yes.
Okay.
So can I take it that we will likely sit beyond 4 to a point? Our great intention is for us to complete Ms. Dlamini and at least start the second witness, which would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Dlamini, just in conclusion on this point about security competence and what role it plays in vetting investigations, I'd like to ask you the following question. If no one at SAA at any point had access to classified information, do you accept that the security vetting that you conducted was then not designed to assess their security competence? If you'll just turn on your microphone.
Yeah.
Can you repeat, please?
Yes. If the facts are that no one at SAA had access to classified information, then the vetting exercise that you and your team conducted could not have assessed their security competence.
Advocate of Mayor, if I may say that, as per our mandate, we vet an applicant. We vet a person who is to enter the system. Now, on your point, you're saying, you're stating that it means that person who is an applicant to be an official in a state-owned entity should not be vetted. I think that's the sense I'm getting to you.
Unless
unless they have classified.
Don't worry about the sense you are getting, Ms. Dlamini. Yes. Don't worry about the sense you are getting. Just answer the question. I believe you have answered the question previously, but I'm going to put it again and see whether you are deviating from that answer. Okay. The purpose of conducting a vetting investigation in terms of Section 2A is to determine the security competence of a person. You agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, when you go to, or let me put it this way, if you conduct a vetting investigation, a security vetting process, which does not determine the security competence of that person, then you are not conducting a vetting process that can achieve the purpose stated in the Act. Is that correct?
My response, Chairperson, Advocate of Mayor, would be I would be vetting a person that is an applicant according to Section 2A who has not had access to classified information as yet.
Yes.
You agree with me, Chairperson?
Well, I don't have to agree with you now. But you are answering a question that you want to answer. You're not answering the question that I'm putting to you.
Yes.
Okay, let's go again.
Yes, let's go again.
The purpose of a security vetting exercise in terms of Section 2A
Yes.
is to determine the security competence of a person.
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree with me that if you conduct a security vetting process which can't or is not going to determine the security competence of that person, then you are conducting a security vetting process that will not achieve the purpose stated in the law?
My response, Chairperson, would be conducting vetting on itself is to determine the security competence. So my answer is you rather not conduct vetting at all, because once you embark on conducting vetting, you want to determine security competence.
Well, you are right.
Yes.
If you are not going to determine, if you are not using a vetting process
Yes.
for the purpose stated in the law, then you should not conduct it at all.
Exactly.
You agree?
I agree, Chairperson.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Hoffmeyer, do you want to take it from?
No, I'm not touching that topic again. Let me move on, if I may. Ms. Dlamini, I would like to put certain conclusions that I draw from the evidence today, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to comment on them. I'm going to look at both what happened in the course of the vetting operation as well as its results afterwards.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Dlamini, do you accept that the security vetting of SAA executives and support staff took place in a situation in which at no point did anyone from SSA investigate whether the persons they were vetting in fact had access to classified information?
I wouldn't state that myself because I was not privy to what occurred or transpired between the two ministers.
As far as your conduct of the
Yes.
operation was concerned, you at no point established whether the people who were being vetted had access to classified information, correct?
We never obtained their job description, their daily duties. Yes, I never obtained that.
Thank you. And you had no basis to dispute the evidence of Ms. Olitsky, which was to the effect that they were not told that they had an option to not take the polygraph test. Do I have your testimony correct?
I said I'm not in a position to respond to that particular case because I don't know what happened there.
Indeed.
Yes.
And Ms. Dlamini, as a result of the vetting that was conducted, 7 executive and
South African they never forwarded their resignation
that was then served by the security vetting. Because if it had been legitimate, and if it had sought to achieve the objective you identified, then any person who didn't receive clearance ought not to have been permitted to remain in their job.
Advocate Dr. Miller, let me say that congratulations for complying with the vetting. I think you have the right, you have the evidence you want to do. In terms of what you just said now.
Well, you just need to answer the questions. I mean, you don't need any other thing.
Yes. I was always available in the organization, always to engage with the leadership of SAA in terms of the work that has been done there, what needs to be done moving forward. And at this stage, we haven't received any indication from their side to say this is the work that has been done there. Can you meet and deliberate on it? So I think it would be very much unethical to say an organization that is mandated to execute those responsibilities and state security has invested a lot of resources on this particular project because we had to execute it according to our mandate. I think it would be really unfair to state that.
And should projects achieve the purposes that they're designed to achieve?
Yes,
Do you accept that this project didn't?
I don't.
Let's talk about what did happen after vetting, because you said that state security would have been available to engage with management and the board on further processes. And I want to know whether you are aware of these facts, and if not, I'll ask you certain follow-up questions. We heard in evidence in the commission that Ms. Niemi, the former chairperson of the board of SAA, wanted to use the fact that Ms. Olitsky could not get clearance because she had dual citizenship to remove her from the finance role she occupied because she was not doing what Ms. Niemi wanted her to do. Were you aware of those facts?
I'm not aware of that.
And if you are now aware of them, would it cause you concern that the outcome of the vetting exercise was being used for an improper purpose?
I think I'm hearing it for the first time at the Board of Mayor, and one would have to really think about it.
Let's look at what happened to Ms. Tuli Mouche. You see, Ms. Mouche indicated that she was not willing to provide the required information to the state security agency. And on the 19th of January, she received a suspension letter. And one of the charges she faced was her refusal to provide the required information to SSA. Would you be concerned that that was an improper use of the vetting exercise conducted at SAA?
I'm not aware of any of the instances that you outlined today, so I'm not in a position here to comment on that.
Let me just give you the facts now. Somebody who was in the acting CEO position at SAA at a point in time refused to provide the information required by the state security agency. And the consequence of that is that one of the charges she faced when she was sought to be disciplined was that she hadn't provided that information to the state security agency. As you sit here today, do you think that's an improper use of this vetting exercise?
Advocate of Mayor, look, now you're going into the issues of SAA between the chairperson of SAA and the other executives, which I think is really not fair to me, because I'm hearing what you're saying for the first time. My job and my duty was to ensure that we execute the mandate of the organization, and I've done that to the best of my ability to represent state security. And what I can say, we were above board in terms of our processes, in terms of the work, in terms of the team that was deployed at SAA at the time. We had highly skilled individuals on the project. The polygraph examiners, we had 3 polygraph examiners.
No, Ms. Ramini.
legislation, insofar as security competence is a requirement for the purpose of vetting to be achieved?
No, I don't accept it.
Chair, I just have one or two concluding aspects, but really to address to you about a summary at the end of the evidence. May I proceed?
Yes.
And then Ms. Domini, I'm sure, will be happy to be excused.
Yes.
Chair, we will make submissions in due course to this commission that the type of security vetting that was conducted at SAA, and contrary to the views it appears of both former ministers and indeed possibly those who executed the vetting operation, that type of security vetting may not lawfully be undertaken unless it is first established that those who are to be vetted have access to classified information in a manner in which they may be able to divulge it to unauthorized persons. Chair, we will also like in our submissions recommend that this clarification of the legal position find its way somewhere into any report prepared by this commission, because it has grave implications in all state-owned enterprises if what is being conducted by the State Security Agency is vetting which does not comply with the terms of the law. Chair, in closure, I'd just like to emphasize why in our submission the evidence today is in fact relevant to the mandate of the Commission. And we make 2 points in that regard. Chair, the Commission is tasked not only with establishing whether state capture, corruption and fraud occurred within the public service sector, it is also required to explore how, if it did happen, it happened, and what recommendations in due course in order to prevent its recurrence. Chair, it will be our submission that using the intelligence services of this country to conduct unlawful vetting operations at state-owned enterprises, and where that vetting operation is then employed for ulterior purposes, may well be shown to be one of the ways in which state capture, corruption and fraud is allowed to take place in entities such as SAA.
I think that particularly the question of why was it used will be very important.
Indeed, Chair.
Yeah, because it's been said that certain institutions, state institutions, may have been used or were used to advance state capture and to advance corruption. So it becomes important. The loss of 7 executives could be important also to see whether it's connected with
can I begin by asking that the file containing Mr. Y's...
Well, we are now going to hear the evidence of Mr. Y.
Indeed.
Yes. We would like that his affidavit and annexure that should be admitted and that they be marked Exhibit 50-3.
That's correct, Chair. Thank you.
It is so ordered.
Thank you, Chair. Can we just start with the sound check, Chair? Mr. Y, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am.
For the record, I just want to state that Mr. Y has taken the prescribed oath as he has been sworn in. You confirm that, Mr. Y?
I confirm that, Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Y, in front of you there should be a file marked BD23. Do you have that?
I do have it.
Can I ask you to open that file and go to page 1? If you look at the red numbers in the top right-hand corner, those are the page numbers that I will refer you to during the course of your evidence.
Yes, I'm there.
Do you recognize that document?
I do. It's an affidavit deposed to by myself.
Thank you. And that affidavit runs to page 22. Sorry, it runs to page 14.
Correct.
Can you confirm that the contents of the affidavit are true and correct?
I do confirm.
Thank you. Mr. Y, can you tell us where you are employed?
I'm employed at the State Security Agency.
And I'm cautious not to ask you questions that will require you to reveal your identity. But you will testify today about a range of facts that relate to a special operations unit.
That is correct.
Can you tell us how you know about that unit?
Well, within the State Security Agency, the knowledge about the Special Operations Unit...
One second.
Okay, Chair?
I know, Mr. Y, that of all of us, you would be the one person who would be very careful not to say anything that might indirectly reveal your identity.
Correct, Chair.
But I do just want to mention that if you mention your responsibilities, your duties, it may well be that could reveal your identity. So as you give evidence, just keep an eye on that.
Thank you, Chair. I will.
Okay.
The knowledge about the specific unit I'm speaking about would be knowledge that the broad membership would be aware of.
Okay.
In the high-level review panel report, a mention is also made about the necessity of such a unit. So that information would also be publicly available in the redacted version.
Okay.
And generally, a unit like that would deal with strategic projects which are normally very sensitive and would involve the utilization of undercover members of the State Security Agency. That was the position up until 2012 when the mandate of the structure was changed and it became more of a counterintelligence a combination of VIP protection and support to the former president. I don't know if I should go further and indicate who was appointed in charge at that stage.
Mr. Mjiwa will ask you questions, but you have just made a reference to the former president. We have quite a few former presidents who are still alive. Which one are you talking about?
Former President Zuma.
Okay, all right. Mr. Mjiwa.
Thank you, Mr. Y. Before we get there, I would just like to understand, before this change of mandate that you've described, tell us about what special operations was prior to that diversion and the kind of things that it did?
Right, as I alluded to the high-level review panel report, a structure like that would deal with very sensitive operations in which the links between the state security agency or government would need to be hidden and plausible deniability be provided. So classically you would look at counter-terrorism operations or transnational organized crime. If I had to quantify the focus given, within the intelligence community we speak about between 80 to 90% of information being available through open source. That would be between 10 and 20% which would need covert means. And of that 10 to 20%, even smaller portion would relate to a structure like special operations. Using undercover members is expensive. Depending where you're operating, you have to make sure you comply with all the rules and regulations relating to business entities and so on. That was the situation up until 2012.
One second.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Y, you've referred on a few occasions to the high-level report. I just want to flag that is something we are going to come to in due course. But can you tell us who the members of a unit like this would have been? And I don't mean the identity of the members, I just mean the level of specialization and training that members of a unit like this would receive.
Well, they would be full members the state security agency. However, their identities would be protected. So they wouldn't declare to people, to the public, that they are members of the state security agency. However, they would share the same benefits in terms of salary, medical aid, pension benefits. Maybe I must just draw a distinction between what we refer to as undercover members and the difference within the crime intelligence environment. We refer to agents that are not members of the state security agency and are normally recruited to provide us with information, whereas within the crime intelligence and police undercover operations, the agent there refers to a member. So with regards to state security agency, you would have full members being part of such a unit, and in the course of their work they would interact with agents who are not members.
Thank you. If we can pick it up at your affidavit at page 9, that's in DD 23.
Okay.
And particularly from paragraph 3.4, you begin to talk about the diversion in the mandates of the Special Operations Unit.
Correct.
Can you tell us how this the unit's mandate has changed?
Well, the immediate impact would have been that the undercover members who were part of that structure would have now been exposed to the protection detail of the former president, Mr. Zuma. They would start doing parallel duties with structures like the Presidential Protection Unit, who are responsible for the protection of the president. So already the fact that they are now being exposed to other members of the security cluster means that they can no longer function in an undercover capacity. The second approach would have been that they would no longer be working on medium to long-term operations, but would be dealing with immediate tactical situations where they would deploy to work around the security of the president. So you're looking at time frames of between a month to 3 months versus investing in people that need to be in position for anything between 3 to 15 years for argument's sake.
And how practically was this change in the mandate of a special operations unit carried out?
It happened with the appointment of Mr. Tulani Dlomo, as mentioned in paragraph 4.1 of my affidavit, and all the members of the structure were informed that they were no longer going to be working on identified focus areas, for instance, transnational organized crime or counterterrorism, but they would now be doing more risk assessment and security directly related to the president, Mr. Zuma at the time.
And what position did Mr. Dlomo hold?
He was appointed the general manager of the new Special Operations Unit in 2012.
And who would he have reported to in that position?
Part of the change was the shifting of the Special Ops Unit from one Deputy Director General responsible for domestic operations to a Deputy Director General responsible for counterintelligence operations.
And can you give us a sense of the size of this unit?
It would be difficult because part of the challenge we face with at the moment is that obviously, although the structure wasn't undercover, they still, their operations were on a need-to-know basis. So the knowledge I have has also been acquired through certain investigations. The structure ended up with approximately 30 members, but altogether they would have deployed in excess of 100. So you would have had 30 members, and then the rest would have been agents deployed to do the same work.
And how would these members and agents have been recruited?
They were recruited directly by the Special Operations structure, not the normal HR process that anyone else applying to state security agency. They were identified and then the names were given through and indications were that please appoint these members within the structure.
And were they formerly members of the state security agency?
No, there were a handful of members. I wouldn't like to give a specific number, but it could be anything between 5 and 10 that were former members of the previous structure who were resurfaced and then were utilized to continue with their new activities. And then the rest were new recruits that were sourced by Mr. Dlomo himself.
And if you go to to page 10 of your affidavit, you deal with some of the functions that this unit performed.
Yes.
Can you talk us through those functions?
All right. You'll see that in paragraph 4.4, I use the word parallel. I think it's a trend that you'll see because the structure actually duplicated functions that were either part of other units within state security agency or other stakeholder departments that we would work together with. So for instance, you would have the TSCM, which is Technical Surveillance Countermeasures, which were brought together under the command of Mr. Dlomo, although the function actually resorted under another SSA structure. They were dedicated to doing this function directly for the President.
Mr. Wire, I'm sorry to do this, but can I interrupt you there? Chair, I'm informed that there's a technical issue with the sound feed, and to ask if we could adjourn for 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's adjourn them for 5 minutes. We are trying. I take it the problem has been solved.
It seems to have been
Technical
solved.
problem.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Mr. Wire, are you still there?
I'm here, Chair.
Thank you. Let's proceed.
Mr. Wire, we left off with you explaining to us the functions that the Special Operations Unit performed after the diversion of its mandate, and you were telling us what parallel technical surveillance countermeasures were, I believe.
Yes,
if I could ask you to start at the beginning of where you were, just in case it wasn't recorded.
All right. So the TSCM function, which is the technical surveillance countermeasure function, was duplicated. So what you would have is we have a structure responsible for that, which would provide services to government departments to make sure that meeting venues are clean in terms of interceptions. But you then had the capacity created within special operations that only service the president wherever he would travel. If you look further into the affidavit, the unit took over functions related to other government departments. One would be the South African Military Health Services, who are responsible for toxicology. The police service, who are the only department with a mandate to do the physical protection, but the special operations members were trained as VIP protectors. If you look at the Defence Force, and specifically the Air Force, special operations members were designated to guard the former president's aeroplane. So all of these are functions that were either duplicated from within SSA or on behalf of other departments.
And the what you described earlier as VIP protection services, are those services that the State Security Agency would ordinarily perform?
No, the mandate for that lies with the South African Police Services. However, maybe just a caveat, we would utilize VIP protectors to protect people within the State Security Agency. Visitors from foreign intelligence services, we would also allocate them one of our protectors. But that would be on an agreement basis with the South African Police Service. No members of parliament, ministers, all of their protection falls under specific units within the police service.
Thank you. I'd like to then turn to your evidence in respect of the provision of protection services to Ms. Mieni, and we pick that up. Sorry, Chair, I see you reaching for the microphone.
Yes, before we had the break, I thought I would ask Mr. Y. Mr. Y, at some stage you were giving evidence about the numbers of the people in this unit, and you were mentioning a much lower number than the number that I see at 4.3. Is there any significance to the discrepancy?
Chairperson.
In 4.3, you
yes,
say
200.
Yeah, you say
yes.
You understand that it was about 200 agents.
Yes.
But I think earlier you talked about 20 or something like that.
The lower number, the 20 to 30, would be full members of the SSA. The 200 I'm referring to here are not members of the State Security Agency.
Oh, so it's two different categories.
Yes. In police terms, these would be classified as informers, for lack of a better word.
The 200?
Yes, Chair.
Oh, okay. Has he covered that part? Or you plan to deal with it later?
Chair, he did deal with the issue of recruitment and with the issue of the members from within SSA. I asked him
yes.
whether there were members within SSA.
Yes,
I'm grateful to you for the clarification of the 200.
And the question of where they seem to have been recruited mainly from as well, he dealt with that.
He didn't give the place. You
Yes.
indicate in your affidavit where the agents were recruited from, Mr. Y. Could you explain that?
Yes, most of the recruits were recruited from KwaZulu-Natal.
Yes.
I can't give you a factual reason for that, Chair,
Yes.
other than to make certain assumptions and deductions given the support base of the people involved.
And were they given any training?
Yes, Chairperson, they were actually provided training which is normally only reserved for members of the State Security Agency.
Yes.
So they were provided training in foreign countries. And those countries wouldn't know that these people are not full members of the State Security Agency. So obviously there's sensitivity in terms of that aspect. So what you had was people who were not members of the agency, but however were highly trained as counterintelligence officers, both in VIP protection, gathering of intelligence, and aspects like that.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Y, if we can then turn to page 11 of your affidavit,
Okay.
where you deal with the provision of security protection services to Ms. Mieni.
Yes.
Can you tell us how it came about that this unit provided such services to Ms. Mieni?
Well, Chair, I must be honest, we have found no paperwork that would indicate either a request or an instruction from within the agency. And the first indications that we got that this occurred was from the high-level review panel report, where it mentioned not only Ms. Mieni, but certain other political leaders. Obviously, as we've been involved in investigations, we're aware that these agents, the group of the 200, were allocated to specific people who could be seen as being supporters of former President Zuma, who may have been facing certain difficulties and wouldn't be eligible for official protection from the SAPs.
Thank you. You have referred again to the high-level review panel, and I think it's appropriate now that we go to that. If I can ask you to turn to page 168 of your bundle.
Okay, Chair, I'm there.
You're there quicker than I am. You'll see there that on the cover page it says High-Level Review Panel Report on the State Security Agency, December 2018. And if you look in the footer, it says Report of the High-Level Review Panel on the SSA.
Correct.
And that document you'll see runs to page 273
Yes.
in the bundle. If you turn to page 173, I just want to read these two paragraphs into the record, Chair, to give some context to what this panel was.
Yes.
It says the high-level review panel into the State Security Agency, SSA or agency, was established by President Cyril Ramaphosa in June 2018, began its work in July 2018, and was given 6 months to submit its report. The key objective for the establishment of the panel was to enable the reconstruction of a professional national intelligence capability for South Africa that will respect and uphold the Constitution and the relevant legislative prescripts. The panel was chaired by Dr. Sidney Mufamadi and included 9 other members with a wide range of senior-level experience and expertise in law, security studies, civil society, academia, the intelligence and security community, and other arms of government. The panel was supported by a secretariat provided by the agency. Mr. Y, can I then ask you to turn to page 236, because that's the portion of this report that deals with special operations.
All right.
And you'll see there at paragraph 9.3.5 that the heading is Special Operations.
Correct.
It says, according to information provided to the panel, a SO unit, I assume that's Special Operations Unit,
Yes.
was first set up in the then NIA in or around 1997, was subsequently shut down, date not known, and reopened again in or around 2002 and apparently carried over into the SSA. Does that accord with your understanding of the origins of the Special Operations Unit?
Yes, correct. This paragraph would refer to the, if I can say, the legitimate mandate of the structure, and it's true what is mentioned here.
Indeed, this is in your evidence earlier what you described as the position prior to 2012.
Correct.
In the second paragraph, it says the notion of a Special Operations Unit in intelligence, military and police services is not at all unusual. Normally it entails units who work under deeper cover than other units of a service and who work on particularly sensitive operations against particularly serious targets or issues, and usually at a national level. Members of such units are supposed to be highly trained and particularly competent. In the case of NIA and SSA, such a unit would be based at head office and work on national projects of particular seriousness that cannot be assigned to a provincial or other structure.
Correct.
Again, is that part of what you've described as the legitimate mandate of a Special Operations Unit?
Yes, correct, Chair.
Can I then ask you to read the third paragraph?
Right. The panel probed relatively deeply and widely into the issue of SO. Towards the end of its deliberations, it received a briefing from the Office of the Inspector General of Intelligence on an investigation it is currently conducting into SO that it hopes to conclude by the end of the current financial year. The panel will make recommendations regarding this below. For the purposes of this chapter of our report, we highlight key elements of what was presented to the panel on SO, particularly in relation to the naked politicization of intelligence in recent years.
Thank you. Are you able to shed any light on that investigation referred to by the Office of the Inspector General of Intelligence?
I am, Chair. It was based on certain complaints that came from some of the agents that were, their complaint was their salaries were stopped, what they called salaries. And they opened up complaints with the Office of the Inspector General. In the course of interviewing those agents, obviously the Inspector General's office then became aware of the certain operations that were running which would have been unlawful. As far as I know, the report has not been finalized yet, and it's running parallel with an investigation that's taking place into the same issues, but from within SSA itself.
And if you turn over the page to page 237, it says the panel was able to identify the key player in the politicization of SO and the SSA in general. The member is currently serving government in a senior capacity. According to reports, he was deployed to SSA by the then president via the minister at the time to head up the Special Operations Chief Directorate. Are you able to shed any light on who is being referred to there?
That's Mr. Tulani Dlomo.
Right, in terms of your evidence earlier, was responsible for the diversion of the mandate of the unit.
Correct.
I'd like then to go to the paragraph starting with, it is clear.
Yes.
It is clear to the panel that the SSA's SO unit, especially under the watch of the member mentioned above, was a law unto itself and directly served the political interests of the executive. It also undertook intelligence operations which were clearly unconstitutional and illegal. Information made available to the panel indicated that these operations included, inter alia, the training of undercover agents in VIP protection and assigning some of these to provide protection to the then president as well as to others who were not entitled to such protection, such as the former chairperson of the South African Airways Board. Does that accord with your understanding of what you described as the diversion of the mandate of the Special Operations Unit?
Correct. I would just want to clarify the training of undercover agents. The undercover there shouldn't be seen as implying that these agents were members of the State Security Agency.
Indeed. Can I then ask you to turn over to page 238? And just the last paragraph above executive involvement in operations.
Yes.
It says there, it is clear from the above information and other information available to the panel that special operations had largely become a parallel intelligence structure serving a faction of the ruling party, and in particular the personal political interests of the sitting president of the party and country. I'll pause there. Do you have any comment on that?
I would agree with that.
It then says this is in direct breach of the Constitution, the White Paper, the relevant legislation, and plain good government intelligence functioning. I won't ask for your opinion as to whether it breaches the law, but would you agree that it's in breach of plain good government intelligence functioning?
Definitely.
I then, Mr. Y, would like to address with you the question of the protection services that were provided to Ms. Mieni. And for that purpose, I'd like to go back to your affidavit. And pick it up at page 12.
Okay.
Sorry, in fact, page 11 at paragraph 5.2.
All right.
Can you tell us, if Ms. Mieni wanted security protection, what would have been the proper process to have followed?
The normal process would have been, we have a function within the agency called security advising. You would have a security advisor allocated to a government department or state-owned entity, and any request highlighting, for instance, that Ms. Mieni thought her life was in danger could have been channeled via the advisor and the South African Police Services. The SSA's mandate is in the area of counterintelligence. So obviously one would have internally done an assessment to say, for argument's sake, if there were certain criminal syndicates that were being targeted for neutralization by the chairperson and they were unhappy with us, and we picked up information like that, we would compile an assessment, provide it to the South African Police Service, who would combine it with their mandate to determine, is the threat of such a nature that she would need to have VIP protection.
And as far as you are aware, was any such process undertaken?
No, it wasn't.
Chair, I intend to move on to a slightly different topic and to deal with the affidavit of Mr. Munsami, who was involved in security at South African Airways itself. It might be an appropriate time to adjourn for the day and pick that up in the morning.
Yes, no, that's fine. Is there any request that we start earlier, or we should be fine with starting normal time?
Chair, I think we should be fine starting normal time.
Normal time.
I don't anticipate
Yes.
that Mr. Y's evidence will take too much longer.
Okay, no, that's fine. This is the last week of the aviation weeks. That looked very far at some stage.
We are waiting for it with great anticipation, Chair.
Okay, we are going to adjourn for the day, and tomorrow we'll start normal time. We adjourn.
All rise.